Hi, it's Alex Counts again. I'm in I'm in a bedroom here where I slept when I was in fifth grade up through high school before I went off to college. I'm up here in New York kind of looking after a parent who's had a rough go of the pandemic era. And myself and other relatives have been looking in on her, and she's doing a lot better. So it's been nice to go back to my roots, and it's been a nice opportunity to record some videos. This is another in a series of videos about how do you go and work with potential major donors to transform them into major donors and partners. And I've recorded videos on the cultivation process, and before that about what to do in your first meeting. And I recorded a video recently about the solicitation. How do you go into the meeting where you're making the ask? And now I want to talk about not how do you make the ask, but what is the ask? How do you determine what to ask for? Well, the first thing is you want to, in both how you ask and what you ask, you want to reflect that you've heard what the donor said during the cultivation, during the get to know you process. Even small tweaks to what you're asking for and how you ask it that reflect that you've heard their preferences and their priorities will make a big difference. What program do you ask for? Now, some people will say you should always ask for your top priority, which is often unrestricted giving or giving to your top program, expanding it perhaps, and never ask for anything other than that. Others will say you should just ask for what the donor's most excited about, regardless of where it sits in your list of priorities. And like most things, the truth is somewhere in the middle. You're trying to find the sweet spot, not necessarily your highest priority, though that would be great, but a high priority that is also extremely exciting to that donor. And this takes a negotiation process with your team, sometimes with your board, and maybe you're going to land on getting a big grant from this donor for your number 3 priority because their number 1 and number 2 just aren't appealing to them at that time. A lot of nonprofits are accused of being donor driven, and it's a kind of, in my mind, a sloppy critique of nonprofits because you're trying to be driven by their priorities and yours, and what's the ideal spot in between. Now, you're not always going to have your entire team supportive of the way you want to go forward with it. But if everyone is opposed, or almost everyone, you probably need to go back to the drawing board. But sometimes maybe there'll be a few people who think you shouldn't be asking for that. You should ask for something else. And as a leader, you're going to need to apply your judgment and take a risk perhaps. Now then the question is, how much do you ask for? What I find is that a lot of inexperienced fundraisers, they tend to ask for far less from a donor than they should and they could. They're not wanting to offend a donor by asking for too much. And yet by playing it safe, you kind of keep the relationship at a lower level, less exciting level for you and for the donor. And that's often a missed opportunity. I think, I often challenge people that I'm advising or my own staff when I ran organizations. I say, if you want to ask for $100,000, why aren't we asking for $500,000? Now, maybe there's a good reason. But maybe it's just there's people trying to play it safe, and they're kind of coming from the mentality that donation is a zero-sum game, that I'm taking money away from the donor's ending up with less, and I want to limit their loss. But in reality, if you're asking for something they're excited about, you're excited about, the more they give, the more exciting it may be for them, the more they may come out ahead in their mind. Probably they have money in surplus if they're a major donor prospect. So then you figure out what you're asking for, maybe not your top priority, but maybe one of your top priorities. Tweak it so that it sounds the most appealing to them. Get internal consensus, and then make sure you're asking for enough. At different stages of a life cycle with a donor, the amounts may vary. If they've had a recent financial setback, you might not want to ask at all right then, or you might want to ask for a lower amount. But what you want to be building towards is what the guy who taught me fundraising termed a lifetime gift. Sometimes wealthy people in their 60s or 70s, if they're philanthropically oriented, will make one gift, and usually not the first gift to a nonprofit, often the 5th or 6th or 10th, that is 5% of their net worth. And 5% of a big number is often a big number. So you want to be in a position when they're ready to make that gift to be the recipient, to be their top philanthropic partner. And a lot of that will be dictated by how well of a steward you are with the gifts that they do make. So I'll be addressing the stewardship part of major gift cultivation in another video. Good luck in applying these ideas, and let me know what you think of them and if they're helpful.